Crisis in Middle East clouds Biden's agenda as White House hosts Australian Prime Minister for lavish state dinner. United States President Joe Biden and Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, after a bilateral meeting during the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations ASEAN Summit in Phnom Penh in Cambodia, Sunday, November 13, 2022. CNN. President Joe Biden's attempt at deepening ties in the Pacific are again competing with other pressing issues, this time the brewing war in the Middle East that is looming over his lavish state welcome for Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Biden's invitation to his Australian counterpart was the consolation prize after he abruptly scrapped and planned plan down earlier this year to return to Washington when the U.S. government was on the verge of the calamitous debt default. At the time, the scrambled plans were viewed as the sign of dysfunctional American politics, interrupting the administration's effort to counter China's growing influence in the Pacific. 5 months later, Albanese will be welcomed to the White House with the highest trappings of American diplomacy, including black tie state dinner underneath a tent erected on the South Lawn. This time, it is an escalating crisis in the Middle East that has become an all-consuming focus for the president and his team, who are simultaneously working to free hostages held in Gaza, ease a humanitarian crisis, ensure Israel has the support it needs, prevent a wider war from erupting the region. Speaking after the elaborate welcome ceremony, Biden hailed the ties between Washington and Canberra, calling the partnership never been more important than it is today. He called the US and Australia two proud Indo-Pacific nations dedicated to the free, open, prosperous, and secure region. And he said the two countries were standing together against Hamas and Vladimir Putin. The war in Israel has forced the Biden administration to realign its foreign policy agenda dramatically amid the proliferation of a global flashpoint. Officials insist they are more than capable of confronting the new war alongside other foreign policy priorities, and they point to Tuesday's state visit as evidence of the multitasking. Advisors say no president has had the luxury of grappling with only one crisis at a time. You can't convince me that wisdom and experience are a bad thing. And now we are seeing that former Republican said Richmond, who is a co-chair of Biden's 2024 re-election campaign, told the CNN. One former senior U.S. official cited the lack of cabinet-level departures as evidence the Biden team is well suited to handle the barrage of issues at once, telling CNN there's no administration that only gets to do one thing at a time when it comes to the national security and foreign policy. It's very experienced team. Yet it's clear that the Israel-Hamas war has added a new and likely long-lasting dynamic to Biden's foreign policy goals. Just over a month ago, the Biden was swinging through Asia, meeting with G20 leaders and stopping in Vietnam to counter a rising threat from China. 3 weeks ago, he hosted Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington to highlight the urgent need for more aid to Ukraine. And a little more than 2 weeks ago, his National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan suggested in the public interview that the Middle East, amid rising threat elsewhere in the world, was quieter today than it has been in 2 decades. Sullivan included the caveat that all of that could change, and it did 8 days later when Hamas launched its attack on Israel, sparking intensive diplomatic American engagement and a last-minute presidential trip to Tel Aviv. The proliferation of conflict around the world has raised questions about the sustainability of U.S. involvement, especially as public opinion for certain conflict wanes. Already, the White House had struggled to secure billions of dollars in new funding for Ukraine. Now, Biden is asking Congress for $61 billion for Ukraine and another $14 billion for Israel's security needs, drawing only criticism from Republicans. To further complicate matters, just as when Biden was forced to cancel his trip to Australia earlier this year, he once again confronted the Congress that is completely disarray. When Albanese arrives at the White House Tuesday evening, the U.S. House of Representatives will have been without a permanent House Speaker and restoratively paralyzed for 21 days. Senior Biden administration officials believe that only weeks remain before the lack of additional funding for Ukraine starts to become a serious battlefield concern. Not a keys soccer game. Biden asked on CBS 60 Minutes this month whether 2 wars is more than the US can take, was defiant. No, we are the United States of America, for God's sake, the most powerful nation in the history, not in the world. In the history of the world, Biden said. We can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. But it's not just the two hard wars where the administration is devoting real resources and brain power. And the experts say supporting allies like Israel and Ukraine and managing adversaries elsewhere should not be mutually exclusive. This is not a kids' soccer game. You cannot just chase the issue of the day. Former Under Secretary of Defense for Policy Michelle Pulonori told CNN, "You have to keep your eyes on what's important and long term." To that end, the eyes are also planning a meeting between Biden and China's President Xi Jinping, a strategic competitor in White House parlance, to occur on the sidelines of next month's APEC summit in San Francisco. The meeting, which neither side has confirmed, will see the leaders meet face to face for the first time in more than a year, as Biden seeks to bolster allies, big and small, in the Indo-Pacific to counter China's influence and pursues economic policies to offset what the U.S. sees as unfair trade advantages. The White House has been building up towards the bilateral engagement throughout the course of this year, establishing multiple touch points to carefully manage the relationship between the two powers, which has broader implications for geopolitical stability. The China top diplomat Wang Yi will visit Washington later this week, senior administration officials said Monday, as the two sides continue to work towards arranging the leaders' meeting next month. Wang will meet with the Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Sullivan during his trip to the U.S. Capitol October 26 to 28, the official said. The officials would not say if Wang would meet with Biden. However, Blinken met with Xi while in in Beijing, and one of the officers described Wang's trip as a reciprocal visit after Secretary Blinken's trip to Beijing in June. The outbreak of war between Israel and Gaza has also put on hold the administration's effort to pursue normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Publicly, U.S. officials maintain that the administration has always every intention of resuming those efforts, but acknowledge that the conflict has been disruptive. We understand that both in Israel and of course in Riyadh, there's a different focus right now. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said this week, we get this. With Australia, Biden has walked over his 3 years in office to cement an alliance that could prove increasingly important in the era of military and economic aggression by Beijing. Alongside Australia and the United Kingdom, Biden unveiled the AUKUS partnership in 2021 meant to align two countries' militaries in the region. The counterpiece was the plan to provide Australia with nuclear-powered submarines, part of the emerging defense partnership widely viewed as the bid to counter China's military ambitions in the Pacific. Biden also revived the Quad partnership comprised with the United States, India, Japan, and Australia as he works to strengthen American alliance. On Wednesday, Biden and Albanese plan to announce the new plans to cooperate on technology, including artificial intelligence and clean energy, according to the White House. They will also highlight new plans to allow U.S. companies to launch into space from Australia. A dinner as many are facing sorrow and pain. The crisis in the Middle East is also likely to arise in the two leaders' Oval Office meeting, according to National Security Council spokesman John Kirby. But he said balancing a host of issues, foreign and domestic, is part of the job. He's commander-in-chief that never stops, and the duties and responsibilities are literally global, Kirby said, adding the task would be made easier if lawmakers would agree to Biden's request for new funding. Still, Kirby said the president is managing it really well because he of his long experience in government, the wisdom he brings to the job, the relationship that he has. The state dinner was set to feature a performance by the B-52s of Love Shack fame, but the performance was cut. Instead, the president on Marine Band and the Army and the Air Force Strolling Strings will provide the instrumental music for the event, and the P-52s will attend the dinner as guests. Nurturing our partnerships and the relationship with our allies is critically important, especially in these tumultuous times, Dr. Biden told the reporters as she previewed the state dinner Tuesday evening. Food is comforting, reassuring, and healing, and we hope that this dinner provides a little of that as well. While we had initially planned for the legendary B-52s to perform their iconic dance and party music, we are now in the time when so many are facing sorrow and pain, she said. So we've made a few adjustments to the entertainment version of the evening. Dr. Biden said the decor for the event, which includes the light blue and purple tablescape and floors, was inspired by the vibrant Australian spring and crisp American autumn as the seasons ripple across our great painted landscape. She tapped Brian Raffanelli, the event planner who crafted her granddaughter Naomi's wedding at the White House last year, to help with the decor and the guest experience for the dinner. The First Lady developed the menu with guest chef Katie Button, a James Byrd Award nominee who owned the popular tapas restaurant Karate in Asheville, North Carolina. White House executive chef Chris Comerford and White House executive pastry chef Sushi Morrison